Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Pixel Pushers. We're back home, had a wild week at Connect, but we found new creators, new developers, and new friends. But before I start there, I'd like to introduce my host, Jake. Jake, take it away.
Hey everybody, Jake Steinerman here, developer advocate at Meta. Awesome to we're back from Connect. I think we're exhausted, but we're energized, right?
I'm
All
still
of us, right?
exhausted.
We're still exhausted. Yeah, we're like we should want to want to take like the next month off, but the metaverse never stops. It keeps going. They keep building. Builders keep building. And we get to meet new people all the time, like our guest this week, Kiira. It's awesome to have you. Got to hang out with you last week at in Menlo Park at Connect. Had you at our Creator Academy. I want to learn more about you. We didn't get a chance to like really like dive in deeply together because we were so focused on like building in Horizon and hearing all the exciting Connect stuff. But what we try and do on Pixel Pushers is really put the spotlight on folks like yourselves, the creators, people building immersive experiences, UGC worlds, games, whatever it might be, people that are pushing the pixels. Um,
You love that line. You love
I
that
love
line.
that line. Oh, Roberto used that last week. That was he's our that's our tagline.
I can't tell if
Um,
he was making fun of us or
I think a
embracing
little
it.
bit, probably definitely a little bit, definitely a little bit. But I think that's part of the fun. It's a little cheeky, but that's how it goes. But yeah, Kiira, welcome to the show. Tell I want to hear more about you, but tell our listeners who you are, what you do, what you're all about, and what you do pushing pixels.
Awesome. Great to be here with you guys. So, I'm Kiira Benz. I'm the founder and executive creative director of Double I Studios. It is an immersive studio. We create interactive, immersive experiences, and many of them are often pushing pixels or pushing voxels. We can talk about that later because I've done
Yes.
a lot of live capture. Some of our work involves liveness and live performers. We've worked with Broadway performers. We've worked with major music artists, and we've worked with a lot of great tech companies. We love doing virtual world building, and we were brought in by Meta 4 years ago to work in Horizon Worlds when it was beta, as just one small example of many things in a decade of working in this field.
That's amazing. You've been in this space a while. I didn't necessarily even fully realize you've been kind of an OG in the Horizon space, which is awesome. So you've kind of seen the full spectrum of that platform, specifically. We love to talk about all platforms here. This isn't a Horizon shill show, but obviously we're gonna, we'll talk about it for sure. But what was your just kind of because we're coming off fresh off Connect and the Academy, like what was your kind of like what were you going into Connect in the Academy with? Especially because like you've built on the platform in the past and built on a lot of other platforms, and what was your kind of takeaways coming out of it?
We probably need to explain what the Academy is because a lot of people don't know
Good,
the
yeah.
Academy.
Let's explain. Yeah, let's explain. This is we got the New York version behind me, but Deepak, if you
Yeah.
want to give the explanation.
So we're very cognizant at Meta that like we need to find new creators and bring them onto the platform. But new creators for us is everyone from like they haven't touched the tools necessarily, right? To people who are like prolific in other spaces as well, right? Whether that's XR, VR, or even like other UGC systems. Because we notice that like a lot of people, when you don't help them like hands on, like they get intimidated. So the whole point of the academy is like, how can we help you? Let's give you some talks. Let's give you some build time. Let's bring some of the Meta employees so you can ask them questions and like let's meld them. But I actually think the most important thing is like people want to meet other creators. And I think that's what the actual special sauce is about the thing. But you tell us, how did it go for you? Like Jake was saying.
It was awesome. Yes, I've been building on the platform for a while. I'd been in this space, in the early prototypes back when it was Facebook Spaces, before it was even Horizon. My
Oh,
avatar has changed so much over the last half decade. Um, I I really love social VR. I think it's a really special place. I think that the opportunity to create something and build something that is your own that you can step into if you're in VR in a really embodied way, and if you're now coming in through mobile, which I think just gives so much more access, that that Horizon is presenting. So I love these spaces. I've been building in them for a decade. I started off building my own multiplayer network because I wanted to bring live audiences together with live performers. So that was where I literally started at the very beginning of my career. And then finding that that was really hard to do, to build a multiplayer network and keep things consistent and work with servers, and just complicated for our team. So we started to work on existing social XR platforms. And some of my early work was with a platform called High Fidelity that was run by Philip Rosedale. And I was brought in to do some case study work for them and look at this intermix of live performance. And so that could be anything from we did a lot of improv. We did like improv workshops, improv shows, and worked with comedians in New York. And then also I've worked a lot with dance. And so I started to also bring dancers and Broadway performers into these platforms. And a lot of my work has sat under this umbrella of R&D. And then sometimes we've been fortunate enough to get it published and be able to take it to places like film festivals or different great institutions like Lincoln Center and present some of the work there.
That's amazing. Have you worked in before the immersive work that you've done? Were you in that industry before? Were you a performer or a producer
Yeah, I came
in
from
entertainment?
Good question, Jake. It's like, how do we all get here? And I think that
Yeah.
for everyone that's tuning in, it's like for those of us that are arriving at making UGC content and virtual world building, or if we're, just exploring the space in different ways, we're still passionate about VR, we're passionate about social connection in different ways. What is it that leads us to this journey? And so for me, yes, I came from a theatrical background. I did my postgraduate degree at a Lambda in the UK in classical acting, but I also had gone into directing, and I was working with really old text. Like I translated a play from medieval French into English.
Wow.
Can't get much more nerdy than that, right? And I really love just taking things that are old and finding ways to make them new, and like looking at the possibility of different art forms and seeing what the evolution of storytelling can be. So for me, it's very much about human-centered design, connecting with other people across time and space. So I really love the power of what VR and the internet can do for us. And but I also still love physical space, and so I still make work that is hybrid, crossing between physical and virtual reality. And I can speak to some of those productions if that's interesting too. But the takeaway from the World Creator Academy, this just to sort of circle back to where you guys were asking about, I think it's all about the community. It is about meeting other people that are passionate about making worlds, having fun, playing together. I think that this is the thing that we get separated from as we grow into adulthood is this thing that brings us so much joy in life. I think we should still have joy in life as we become adults. So let's find ways to play. Let's find ways to explore with each other, learn from each other. And I just find social VR and social platforms to be an incredible place and empowerment for this kind of creation and connection between humans.
In my opinion, like that's the common misconception people have with that dirty word called the metaverse. Like to me, the metaverse is connections. And so connections happen on your mobile phone, your VR, your glasses, and in person. Like we're not gonna all of a sudden just all get rid of like wanting to meet in person. So like I think some platforms they forget that like half the job is connecting everyone virtually, but most importantly also physically to start like deepening those bonds. So yeah, like I completely agree with your like insight of like the importance. But like I do want to like because like I'm still new to this space, especially on the like immersive space, the VR space. Like tell me, Jake obviously is a master, but like tell me like why, what is immersive studios? Like I know you said it, but it's still a lot of people like me don't know what that really means, or and why social VR, if that makes sense. Like
So immersive, I like this umbrella immersive right now. I've been leaning into this word for the last year. The Venice Film Festival, where I've had exhibited some of my work and won a pretty big award there 5 years ago, the first for VR theater of its kind at a major A-list festival. They've embraced this word immersive, and I think it's a really interesting one. I feel like it can encompass XR, all forms of XR, right? So VR, AR, MR, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. We'll just keep the definitions going, but I'm sure much of your audience is super educated and knowledgeable here. but the immersive can be stepping into more than just this technology that is XR. It can also be stepping into a web-based experience that is taking us, more deeply into what I would consider to be a three-dimensional environment. And so we're kind of going from what might be a 2D interface, but we are projecting ourselves into that 3D world and space. Immersive could also be a physical installation that we go into at a museum or a gallery. It could be a sound installation using 3D audio. I think anything that starts to involve space and a sense of our body and perception. I think that those are the key things that start to give us something that's immersive. So my studio works in a creative way. We've done creative strategy, but we've also done end-to-end production. So that's everything from setting up a 360 camera. We've also shot with 2D cameras. My most recent shoot and production that we premiered this summer is an experience that we worked on with Kinetic Light, a disabled dance company that does aerial choreography, flying through space in their wheelchairs. And that piece we actually shot 2D, but then we layered it in a Hollywood, like an old style Hollywood technique with a foreground, midground, background in a spatialized way so that when you come in VR, you actually feel like you are at the center of something that has depth, even though we were filming essentially 2D flat video and like layering them into these little video cards. So again, it's about what that experience is for the user, for the player. And I think that, there's so many forms that we can have of immersive experience. And I'm just there to serve the story and the experience and say, what is the best tech that we need for it? What is the best platform to be on for that story and experience and the feeling that we want our audience to have?
That's awesome. Do you feel like it's when it comes to these experiences, and there's one I'm on the side here trying to look up an experience that I went to in New York, and I'm forgetting the name of what it's called and exactly where it was, but everyone was wearing it was more of a passive an experience where everyone put on Magic Leap 2s. I think it was like the only time I actually got to try Magic Leap 2. And we were watching a pianist performance. It was a famous pianist, and I'm forgetting who it was. But you got to walk around. You probably know what I'm.
I did that piece. Yeah, I experienced that. And that was, really beautifully presented volumetric capture. So, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, like you're taking a whole set of cameras set up in a circular fashion that are pointing inwards towards a performer or an object, but usually a performer because it's great if it moves. Otherwise, it's photogrammetry if it's still. So volumetric, we're recording video, we've got movement. So this pianist, and world renowned, and I'm also blanking on his name right now, but incredible pianist. They captured him before he passed away. Yes, this was it exactly. And what was great about the piece is that we could move through space. Like we put the Magic Leap glasses on, but we could move around to see the pianist from all sides and engage with the piece in that way. It wasn't interactive. That is the difference. I mean, technically we were interacting with our body through space to see the pianist. But obviously, as you can see in the center of this image that Jake has pulled up, nothing is there in physical space. It only becomes alive through the mixed reality perception through the Magic Leap glasses.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I don't have a good recording of the experience itself. Maybe we'll try and bring that up and share it in post when we edit it, because I think it's really powerful to see, like, to actually it's a visual experience, right? It's I think to see to believe, but yeah, to be able to walk around and have your own individual experience, right? Everyone has their glasses on; they can stand whatever perspective they want to, or get as close or as far away as they want to. I thought was a really interesting way to get to experience that piece of art. Do you feel that when it comes to these experiences, do you if have any preference or perspective on if this enables people or should enable people to be more participatory in the art, or more just like experience it passively, like more immersively? You kind of do you understand like just do I actually like engage with the actors or the piece that's happening, or just kind of watch it but can be more immersive?
Great question, Jake. That's my preference. I like interactive content. So I feel like we're in a medium where we have an opportunity to do infinite things with our bodies and our imagination and our perception. We're using virtual objects. either in physical reality or in virtual space. So why not do the impossible and do things that are we couldn't do in physical reality? Like, so I'm there to augment it and change it and engage with the audience and make it interactive. That's my preference. So 90% of my content has been social based, where there's a community and an audience of more than one, sometimes up to 100, depends on what our scale and our production is, as I would like to scale even larger. So I'm working on that in my future productions. And I like interactive content. I think it makes it really special. So that's my preference. But I also like to give what I consider for the user experience. I like to give people layers. I call them like tiers of engagement. So there could be an audience member that's really new to this, or they're really uncomfortable in the tech, and they just aren't ready to move their body through space or pick up a virtual object or play a mini game with other people. It's just enough for them to just sit back and just take it in. And I also like to design for them, like meet them where they are, let the content come to them. And then for the more curious, adventurous explorers, design something where they can interact with each other.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because that's really interesting when it comes to these technologies too, because most people don't have their first experience with VR, with AR, with any of this stuff, unless it comes to like, if it's an art installation or something, some public exhibit. Like most people still don't have VR at home, that kind of thing as well. So becomes like a really important mechanism to introduce people to the technology in a way. So yeah, I think that's great to have it in a way that you can kind of choose your adventure, right? Or like ease your way into it, because a lot of people don't aren't still comfortable. They get motion sick in VR and stuff like that. Everyone responds. It's a very physical type of experience. So I think that's really interesting, and important. What were some of the I think you mentioned some of them. If you want to dive into any of the highlight any specific installations or experiences that you worked on, we'd love to hear more about those.
Sure. Yeah. I think basically, so one of my first experiences that I did many years ago at the beginning of when I have entered into this immersive XR industry was a piece called Cardboard City. It won the Samsung Gear contest. It was one of the first winners of their first contest. I was the only New York artist at the time, so not everyone got to see it. But that was presented at Lincoln Center, and that had a mix of AR, VR, and UGC, but like analog physical UGC. And we built a cardboard city together with the audience. And in fact, it had such a big turnout and such a huge age range. We had, of course, kids that, picked up objects and like their imaginations were flying, but also like up to adults. I feel like our age range from what I remember tracking was like 5 to 80. And it was so beautiful to see these people building alongside each other, making this cardboard city and building, someone would build a building and then someone else would be like, I'll add the taxi to go in front of your building, or like, I'll build a bridge to connect your building to another building. And the story was about gentrification. I'd been filming with artists in Brooklyn that were getting pushed out of their artist studios, dropping down 360 cameras back in the day and like stitching it in a really old school way. None of these more seamless tools were built into platforms like Adobe yet. So, you were basically taking video, stitching it in a photo stitching program, and then pulling it back in to make it work as video. So old school, and we 3D printed our camera rig to make it work to capture those shoots. And it was just really special. I had done an experience at the Tribeca Film Festival. I'd experienced it. This was my first time coming into the field. I did this piece called The Enemy, where I walked between two soldiers that came from opposing cultures, a Palestinian soldier and an Israeli soldier, and they were asking them the same questions. And you found so much humanity in what they shared. And you had to physically walk between the two soldiers who had been captured with photogrammetry. So they were life-size. And I was blown away by the piece, by the power of the storytelling, by the encounter with it, like being embodied in it, interacting with it. It was interactive. And I knew that this was the medium that I had to shift into. So I sort of took all my theater background and my documentary filmmaking background and dance background, and I took all those things and said, okay, what do I have to learn? And I sat on the floor with the creators of that piece, and they were like, Unity. And they started to give me a list of software, Blender, and I just like wrote everything down and started to sign up for courses. And entered Samsung's contest and won. And since then, for me, it's been a no-brainer. I never looked back. I was like, this is my medium, this is my field. I want to make content that changes people in a way where they feel the impact of the story, and they can, they're doing this in this mix of mediums between physical and virtual and whatever other reality we might perceive in between.
So, first of all, that's fantastic. Like, but I'm getting like two themes, right, coming from your stories, which is like social and storytelling. So maybe why is that so important to you, and more particularly important to this medium for you?
Yeah, that's a great point, Deepak. Thank you. I think that stories we've had this for as long as we can remember. Like, this is what humans pass on. And stories can get told in all different forms. And, if we go back to the Greeks, like, we would gather in an amphitheater and these huge tragedies and comedies would be performed. And they were festivals and you were paid to be there. Like, they wanted culture there. It was important. You were learning lessons as humanity. And I think that the gathering of people, and I have a lot of thoughts about what gathering looks like. That can be in physical space, but I also think it's really powerful to gather in virtual and digital space. It also is an experience, and it can also transform you. So, for me, it's definitely about feeling the story together as a gathering of humanity, and that possibility of having a transformation arc, reaching, again, like going back to the Greeks, reaching catharsis. So I'm always after that. Doesn't mean we reach it in every production and every experience, but I'm like, that's like my goal as an artist and a creative director is, how do we get there? How do I transform someone from the state that they're in into something else? So, for example, a piece I did with Reggie Watts, the music artist and comedian. I was the first VR director on the world's largest volumetric stage at Intel Studios. And I had this opportunity to work with Reggie and this incredible piece of music that he and John Tejada had written with their group, their duo Wahata. And they wrote this piece of music called Runnin' that was like pure joy. When I listened to it, I just wanted to have my own dance party, but I thought, what if I could do a dance party and dance inside a Rubik's Cube and dance on the ceiling? What would that be like? And what if my perspective could change? And what if it felt like I'm in my own private dance party and I can feel as free as I want to be, and dance and move my body however I want? So I thought that it was a special opportunity. Intel had the world's largest stage. That meant I could work with a really large cast and a bunch of dancers all at once so that they could dance and feed off of each other's energy and create this dance party vibe. And then we would extract those volumetric dancers and place them in this crazy Rubik's Cube that assembled around you in VR. And you would have the choice to teleport to the walls and the ceiling all over this three-dimensional Rubik's Cube. So that was a dream piece and experience. The goal was to give people a feeling of joy. It was a very short script. You started off in a vintage record store. You were remixing Reggie's music. You teleported in through the record player with Reggie. You basically like go in through the record with him in his virtual body, and you land in this Rubik's Cube and it assembles around you, and you get the choice to teleport, but you don't have to teleport. You can stay where you are. And so again, it's like delivering for that person that might not want to go dance on the ceiling. That might be too much. They're just happy to let the dancers come to them. And the goal was to achieve a sense of joy. And for many people that experienced it, that's the feeling when they took off the headset. They were like, I'm so happy now. I feel such joy. I just want to keep doing it. Like, can I do it again? And that for me is like the biggest payoff as a creator. If I can design something with a goal of a feeling and changing someone's state of being, then I've done something I think important for my life.
This thing from Denzel always stuck with me, where he talks about like making movies is a filmmaking medium, and doing theater is an actor's medium. But when I hear from you, it seems like it's a combination of all of it on top of like this sort of like interactive element as well, enabled by digital. Like, so it seems like you get to have, at some level, like the best of both all these worlds.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, shouldn't we take the best of all the worlds and see how they fit together, right? Like, if the power of this technology and medium can transport us into another dimension, and like we have the opportunity to dance on the ceiling. I mean, for me, that's coming from my theater background. Like Fred Astaire did that, right? So I'm like, I want to do that someday. If I'm going to go in VR, I'm going to do the things I can't possibly do physically, or not without a lot of help and a lot of other technology. So, and how do I transport people into that as quickly as possible? Another piece I did, the piece that won Venice Film Festival and won a Lion Award there, was called Finding Pandora X. And that's a piece that we did in VRChat, where it's a branching narrative. The audience enters a world. They're given an avatar, as if it's like an immersive costume. They're given an avatar of a Greek chorus. So they get to put on these kind of robes and hooded avatar, and they all look similar to each other. So they're meant to be a unified body of people. But automatically, I think by giving someone an avatar and an immersive experience, it's like, here you have an opportunity to change into this thing and take on this role. So a little bit of LARP involvement there and storytelling. And then they are going on this journey, and the idea was they're looking for Pandora together. Hope has been lost. The box of hope has gone missing. And we'd been writing this show before the pandemic. It was about Pandora X. And then it was supposed to be performed across different domes and bringing people together in a physical and virtual audience combined. But when the pandemic hit, we knew we couldn't possibly perform in physical reality. We didn't even know what reality was looking like anymore. So we used virtual space. Everyone wanted me to open up a virtual world that I built called Love Seat in the High Fidelity platform. High Fidelity had pivoted at that time. And for many of you listening and tuning in, I'm sure you're familiar with some of these great platforms building things that you've loved that no longer exist. But that doesn't mean we can't keep creating as humans and like taking our magical kits of creation with us to another platform and kind of like popping our tent up and building in a new place. I think it's really possible. So people wanted me to open the Love Seat world. I thought that world was built for that show. It was, a special world, but it was limited in some ways. And so I thought, no, we need to build something more special for humanity now. If people want to gather because they feel safe in our spaces and we take care of them on their user journey when they get to us, then let's build a magical world. And I crowdsourced the world, and we did these digital experiments with a theater on the Lower East Side and a live audience digitally. And we were asking the audience, what do you want? And they said, we want to fly. Like, we just want to fly. And so I was like, okay, we got to build flying in this show. And so what we did is Zeus and Hera, the gods, get to fly through the whole show, but the audience goes on this journey. It's a branching narrative. So half the audience follows Zeus into the underworld and half follow Hera into the futurist city. And they build different types of puzzles together. The adventures are different. So for Zeus, it's a much more action-oriented world. They're smashing things, they're breaking things, they're throwing things, they battle a Cyclops. And then with Hera, it's much more logic oriented. It's like puzzle games. They have to kind of step back and think about things, but there's still some risk and adventure there. Like some of them have to fly over a chasm with grappling hooks and build a bridge for the rest of their team to join. And then they circle back. They come back into Mount Olympus with these objects that they've gathered in these other virtual worlds. They fly up to the Oracle, they learn a final dance together as a Greek chorus, and then they have to assemble a final puzzle. And then we teach them to fly. And they get to end the show flying over the world for as long as they want. We would keep the world open and people would socially gather and have, faux Aperol spritz if they wanted up in the cloud bar, or they could fly all over the world of Mount Olympus together.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I want to try all these experiences. That sounds like a wonderful experience. Do you find that people, when they go through these experiences, they want to? They're from a technology side. I have two unrelated questions just on that part. But do you feel like they're like converted to the technology and like, hey, I want to go and go home and buy a headset and like do this all the time, or something to that degree?
Many, yes. I mean, we had people came in, we performed Finding Pandora X. We started on the film festival circuit. I came from a filmmaking background, theater and then filmmaking. And so that's kind of the way that I knew. And the filmmaking industry was making these great categories that were exhibiting this technology. It was like a form of distribution and opening it up to audiences that maybe didn't own headsets. But then when the pandemic hit, people had to get their own headsets. This was the way to enter. And what was really special, we would hear from people coming into Venice Film Festival, attending from all over the world, or coming to South by Southwest, another festival that we performed at. They said, I bought the headset to see your show and I plan to return it, but I'm going to keep it now because I didn't know it could do this.
That's so cool.
It's
That
some
they,
conversion rate, right? Like if the
yeah,
story, if the medium is presented in a way that engages people and meets them where they're at.
yeah, and it's about getting people into that. I think so many people are converted once they get in. There's so many preconceived notions about, you know, immersive technology that once you get in the headset, it's really hard to convey, you know, these experiences in video. So even if we do, and I hope we're going to hopefully put some videos up here during this in the edit so people can see what we're talking about, you still can't convey those types of experiences through a 2D video. That was the hardest thing. I mean, for anyone working in this space too, especially during COVID. Like I worked for Spatial.io, another platform that's based in New York, and you know we saw a lot of interest in the technology, more on the enterprise side, but in the technology during COVID. But it was so hard to get people in the headset. Like you can show them videos, right? But as soon as you put the headset on and start experiencing it, that's where that kind of like moment happens, and people are like, okay, like I get it, this isn't like a gimmick or anything like that. This is like truly like a different medium, which I think is really cool. My other question that I had, which is sort of unrelated to that, was the perspective of the cast members and the talent that that get to go through this. Like what, because obviously they're used to doing a lot more like live performances, and you're getting a lot of I'm sure like the feedback from the audience and stuff like that. So what's been the feedback that you've seen from actors and others that are, I guess, recording themselves or participating in presenting their characters and things in a different way than a traditional medium?
Yeah, exactly. T-Bag was pointing out like storytelling and like what are some of these sort of threads of like, I don't know, the creative DNA of what drives me as an artist and creative director. And another piece I would say is embodiment. And I think it's really incredible to think about. Obviously, we know what to do with our bodies in physical reality, or some of the time, like we know how to move forward through the world, right? Or sit down and do these things. But in virtual reality, that's really different. And so now you put a headset on an actor. How do they move their virtual body through space? How does that convey what they want their physical body to be doing? And one of my favorite formats is a hybrid format that I presented at. I'd been exploring it for years in New York with my team, but then I had an opportunity to present something on the world stage and at the Venice Film Festival called Love Seat, which is a hybrid show that was between physical and virtual reality. So we had physical performers gathered in Venice, a physical audience of 50 people, and then we were able to scale to another 20 that joined us in virtual reality and high fidelity. And what was so cool about that was the way of kind of showing and presenting the space to people, and also what the actors were doing with their bodies in these two different types of spaces. So what I did in physical reality in Venice was I projected screens and intercut like a live broadcast TV show. We intercut cameras from the virtual world so that the physical audience didn't have to put a headset on. They could just see what was happening in virtual reality. But we also had headsets floating around the audience. So if they wanted to go in, if they were that more curious, adventurous explorer, they had that option. They could jump in and move their vantage point. They could fly up to a different point and perspective. But in virtual reality, they obviously had that choice. And what was so special there, we would meet some of the virtual audience coming in. We'd like open up the stream for them and say hi to them from physical Venice. And they were making avatars as if they were like dressing up to go to an event, like a concert or a LARP. Like they were making and designing avatars to come attend the show. And this was 2019. And I thought that was like, again, like such a cool representation of what a digital and virtual community can do together. Like they made their own meetup to find each other to come do this show together. And then we were like, we just found that so special. We were like, we want to give back more to you guys. That's so cool you've come to do this. We're going to do a special Q&A with you, with our actors after the show. And we set up Q&As with them, and like the actors, we all like met each other through digital cameras. And so again, I think when the mediums can be used like to their full potential, like we can just keep crossing in and out and having different forms of social connection. And in terms of the embodiment and the avatar representation, what you get when you're kind of exposing, I put the actors in front of the audience with their headsets on. So the audience could see what their physical bodies were doing, what they looked like, but also the projection of their avatars so they could see in real time what making a choice looked like. For example, Jonathan's virtual avatar head was a little bit higher than his. And so he'd kind of had to fake, if he wanted to like pretend he was like pushing his hair back, he would take this actor, Jonathan David Martin, played this character, Bruce, in Love Seat. And he'd like fake his hand above his head because that's where his avatar head was. And so that takes a certain level of practice for the actor to get to understand where they are in relationship between their physical and virtual body. And that's like, I guess like a sweet spot, crazy skill that I have to work with actors to help them find that. And, something that we continued on in our R&D work in our show Skits and Giggles and Horizon when it was in beta.
Wow.
It's like the ultimate like fan event. Because like usually I go to like Jake knows is I go to Comic Cons and stuff like that, but it's you're meeting the creator, but this one you're part of the show.
Yeah, it's funny. I had like when I don't know at what point I had these thoughts too. When I was a kid growing up watching TV and shows and things like that. I always had these thoughts in my head of like it was always for a long time entertainment for forever or not forever for a long time was a very like one way experience. Like you watch like a late night TV show or like any kind of thing, and it's like you can watch them, but they can't see you. And I always had this thought in my head like how like would there ever be like how would this ever work in a world where like they could see me while I could see them, like without obviously being there in like the live audience and have it be like participatory in some way at a distance, like almost they could see through the camera. I remember having those kinds of like thoughts in my head. So the fact that like today that seems obvious, right, through live streaming and all these kinds of things, that can be done. But from a like a theater perspective, like an entertainment perspective, that's really cool to see that being done today. So I mean, kudos to you for making my my dreams come true, for lack of a better term. But that's really awesome to hear and see that happening.
Well, thanks for having the vision, right? Like, I think that this is what's special is like, if we dream these things up, then hopefully they can get built into our
Yeah.
lifetimes. So like, what are the things, I guess I pose this to the audience is like, what do you want to see? Like maybe drop it in the comments, right? Like what kinds of things do you want to see? What kinds of roles do you want to build with each other? What kinds of experiences do you want to have? And is there something that you're like longing for in life, like having superpowers, like flying in a virtual world? What else is there? What else do you want to do? And what kinds of ways do you want those things to cross? Like I am curious about the cross section between physical and virtual reality or physical and augmented reality. Like what does this space of interaction and design and human experience look like? Like let's imagine it and dream it together and build these things.
Absolutely. That's a perfect segue. I was going to ask you to kind of close things off, like where you've obviously seen a lot in the last, 10 plus years that you've been working in the immersive space. Like, where do you think it needs to go and where do you want to see it go in the next 5-10 years?
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to give like this example around what we did with Horizon Worlds, because I think it sort of unites us back here to like the World Creator Academy and coming off of all this cool meta learning. And I think that will maybe then catapult me into like a future, like larger umbrella standpoint. So we were approached by Meta about 4 years ago. The platform was in beta. You had to build everything in headset, right? You were 3D modeling, stuffing objects into objects to make objects and make a world. And so, and because I've worked in social VR so many times, I've hit these moments that I think Horizon was hitting that I was like, oh, it's going to be a pain point, but it's going to be okay. It's going to grow. But maybe the rest of the world and the audience that's new to this medium might not know that. And so they might not give it the love that it deserves and like hold the vision, like the platform's going to grow. You're going to have more people in the world. It's okay. I've like been there with so many worlds where it's like, you can have 5 people in a world, you can have 20 people in a world, now you can have 40 people. Like these things keep growing over time, but it takes time for the platform to get to synchronize all these crazy forms of communication that are happening in the virtual world. Like, right, all these things have to sync up, especially if we're doing a live performance. Like, things really have to sync. And I like to challenge things and push the pixels and push the voxels. Like, that's my goal, is like push the medium, break it and push, because otherwise we won't innovate. And that's what I feel like I'm called to do in this lifetime. So I, Meta Horizon didn't have legs on the avatars yet, and playing music back was hard, like doing anything musical related. And I was like, great, we're going to do musical number. We're going to figure out legs. We're going to do them both in this production. And so we built 4 worlds, because the worlds could only hold so much at the time. You couldn't import a texture. You couldn't import anything. Everything was built in headset. My amazing dedicated artists on my team and I would, they'd build these incredible things. We'd all go in and audit them together and be like, we have 2% capacity. Like, we'd take some objects out. We'd like take like handles off of coffee mugs and like figure out like how to make this world work. And when Meta had approached us, they were curious about a couple different formats. They were like, what does talk shows look like? What could like VR comedy or like sketch look like, or variety? We were like, variety show. That's cool. Let's do like a retro variety show, like an old version of Saturday Night Live, or like Laugh-In, like reference these really great artists and this art form that's come up over time, and build these sets that could, change, and the actors could be on them, and the audience could feel some kind of magic and surprise, even though we couldn't do a lot of animation. What else can we do? And I think sometimes when a platform is growing and there are certain limitations, like, that's okay. Take the limitations and use it as a moment to still innovate. And now the platform, what I can circle to is like, it has grown so much. There's so much more that you can do. But I think what we achieved then was also really special. So we built 4 worlds. You start off in a giant martini glass, and you learn the interactivity. You learn a song that you're going to do with the performers that will be involved, and like will involve virtual objects of participation throughout the show. Then we portaled into a new world. And what was so brilliant too, because of the way that you can travel with groups across platforms in Horizon and with Facebook technology, right, is like we're able to connect all these things. So we all travel together through a portal and landed in the main stage world. And on that world, we had a giant revolving stage that had sets that revolved around. We brought in some really amazing performers. McKenna Harrington is now in a Paramount Plus show called Tulsa King. She's starring in that show. So she was one of our performers that we trained up. Jen Harris.
I just started watching that show, so that's crazy.
So she's in the weed shop. You will see her character grow over time. She's the young woman with the really cool punky hair. Her character's name is Grace. Then you have Jen Harris was in a writer's room. She's now on Broadway in a show called Oh Mary. Our other great writers, Danielle Evanson and Heather Huntington, had come from television. So just some like incredible tour de force performers. Grace Ryder is off Broadway. She's a TikTok star, and she's performing in a show called Ginger Twinsies based on The Parent Trap. So they've all gone on to have like incredible careers. Many of them had incredible careers before they came to us, but they jumped into this medium not knowing anything about VR. We shipped headsets across the country, and I worked with the performers to teach them how to work with their bodies in virtual space virtually. Normally, I'm doing that training with them in physical space. But I learned like it's possible in virtual space. We can do anything. And we built these worlds and we jumped through the audience through these portals. And it was so much fun. And Meta was great. They let us take the show to Raindance so we could present it to more people. And then I kept building some worlds just for fun with my team. Like I just felt that it was a really joyous place. I really loved the act of like co-creation in real time with people. Meta has this great tool that you can do it in VR and you can kind of move things and go into this like giant godlike avatar and like move things, and you can shrink your avatar down and like get small and then feel them in a more one-on-one encounter. And now of course with the engine that and you guys can speak more to that, but these new tools, now you can do all this in desktop mode. And with the Gen AI tools, if you're not comfortable as a creator with 3D modeling or coding, there's opportunities to use the Gen AI tools. And so I'm just looking at the growth of all these things and the like tools that are reaching the creators and being put in their hands. And I just think that it's empowering. I think the creator is at the center. They should stay at the center. that is what will keep us as a human-centered, humanity. Let's remember the human word in that. And I think that we just have to keep reaching those tools to creators and saying, you guys are the most important thing. Let's empower you with AI, empower you to build worlds together. And then, what is the reality that we want to build? Let's make it.
Amazing. I love it. Exactly. That's the goal, is to bring, from our side, to bring these tools to more people and enable more people to create. Because I think I think, kind of to your point, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of creative ideas, but maybe not, maybe the full tool set or the know-how to how to bring those, ideas to life. So that's what we're hoping, is that, from Horizon Engine and all and the editor and those kinds of things, more people can build, whether it's, theater and entertainment experiences, whether it's games, whether it's social spaces, those kinds of things. We want to see a real proliferation for that, and not have it be something that's kind of stuck behind you have to learn for 6 months or a year how to use basic tools. Like, anyone can jump in really, really quickly to do that. So yeah, amazing. Well, Kiira, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited and inspired. I'm not too far from New York, so I want to come up to New York and see some of these, see more of these shows and experiences, because they're awesome. Hopefully, we'll get some clips and put them in the show, so people can at least get a taste of what some of them are. But really appreciate you coming on and pushing those pixels and pushing those voxels. Most important, we should change the name of the show as Pushing Voxels. I think that's where it's at. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Deepak, if you want to close us out.
Kiira, thank you. But yeah, please like and subscribe. One day we'll figure this part out. Like and subscribe. Please address Kiira's question through that she said on the show. And yeah, with that, keep pushing those pixels. Keep pushing those mediums. Bye, everyone.